In 2017, the National Initiative for the Care of the Elderly issued the results of a national survey on the mistreatment of older Canadians. This survey revealed that in Canada, the prevalence of elder abuse, physical, sexual, psychological, financial, was 7.5%, representing 695,248 Canadians. This survey did not even cover instances of neglect. This video was produced to raise awareness of these hidden crimes. It also provides insight into the complexities of providing access to justice for older adults who are victimized. Finally, it provides opportunities for change and healing through restorative approaches.
Well, I wish to thank Eva for asking me to participate in this project a few years ago and to now complete it. The video that you're about to watch was produced as a teaching tool to provide insight into the challenges and complexities of ensuring access to justice for victims affected by elder abuse. The role play in this video is based upon the facts of an actual case involving an elderly mother and her son. This included petty acts of theft and escalated to major embezzlement. As a result, the son breached the trust of his mother's financial power of attorney.
Hello, Mother. I'm back.
Hello, Gary. I'm in the living room.
Well, I got the stuff you wanted. The bread, the soup, cheese, and jam. Oh, I got us a bottle of sherry. Now, you like sherry, don't you? Let's have some now.
Heavens, Gary, not at this hour. But if that's what you want to do, sit there and relax while I put these away.
I could do that for you.
Oh, no, thank you. You don't know where they go. And besides, my arthritis is much better today. I'll only be a minute.
Did you ask about that money? You were worried about my going to the bank?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, Gary. Did you get my bank statement?
No. The lineup was so big, I would have been all day. But I'll get it next time I go by. Don't worry about it.
Oh, thank you, dear. You're such a great help. There, that didn't take long, did it? Now, tell me about your business. The last time you were here, you were quite concerned about it.
Well, you know the printing business, it has its ups and downs. We're doing better right now. In fact, I think we'll show a profit next month.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. You know, Gary, I'd loan you some money, but I have to be careful. I may need it to look after my future.
What do you mean?
My health, Gary. I may need to go to a nursing home.
Oh, one of those? No way. They're impersonal. They're expensive. Not as long as you have me looking after you. You're okay the way you are. Don't even think of a nursing home as long as I'm here.
Oh, you're such a great help to me, Gary. I don't know what I'd do without you.
Well, that's so true. There's nothing I won't do for my mom. But, I got to get back to the old salt mine. So I'll see you soon. See ya. Take care.
Don't forget the bank, Gary. Gary. I don't know what to think about this, Gary. Surely you haven't done that. I can't imagine what you...
Hello, Mrs. Smith. It's Jane. Jane, your social worker. May I come in?
Oh, Jane. Oh, yes, Jane. Do come in.
Hello, I hope you're feeling well today. Oh dear, you're looking upset. Is something the matter?
Oh, there's nothing the matter with my health. Actually, on the new prescription, I'm doing much better. It's something else, another problem.
Well, would you like to talk about it?
Oh, no, it's personal. But I have to tell somebody.
You can tell me.
Jane, there's large sums of money missing from my bank account, and I did not take them out.
Your son helps you with your finances, doesn't he? Have you talked to him about it?
Gary's such a good boy. I depend on him for all my errands. But I wish he'd help me find out what's the matter with my bank account. Why should there be $40,000 missing? I know there's been some bill payments, but nothing like that. Or am I beginning to lose my mind, Jane?
Well, what exactly did you say to him?
Oh, well, I asked him if he'd get me my bank statements, but he hasn't done that. I think maybe he may have taken $40,000.
$40,000 is a very large sum of money, Mrs. Smith. Would you like to talk to somebody? Perhaps call the police.
Oh, no, not the police. What would happen to Gary? What would happen to me? I depend on Gary for everything. Oh, what should I do? What should I do?
Please rise. Court is now in session.
Be seated. Good morning, counsel.
Your Honor, the next case is the matter of the Crown versus Gary Smith on the charge of fraud and theft from his mother, Mrs. Smith.
Gary Smith, you're charged with theft of $40,000, and you're also charged with fraud as a result of forgery of checks resulting in the theft of sums totaling $40,000. How do you plead to these charges?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
All right, then you can sit down. You're appearing for the Crown?
I am.
All right.
Ms. Jansen, initial M.
All right, good morning, Ms. Jansen. Are you ready to proceed?
I am.
Thank you.
First witness I'd like to call is Mrs. Smith. Could you please come up here, ma'am?
Morning, Mrs. Smith.
Morning.
Can you place your hand on the Bible, please? Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mrs. Smith, I understand you live here in the city of Etobicoke at an address of 130 Bathurst Street. Is that right?
That's correct.
And who do you live there with?
I live alone.
All right. Now, I understand you're here in court today because there was a problem. Can you tell us what that problem was?
Because there was a large amount of money missing from my bank account.
How much money was missing from your bank account?
I think about $25,000, but I'm not sure. I haven't been very good with numbers of late.
Now, Mrs. Smith, do you remember giving a statement to a police officer?
Yes.
And would it help you to refresh your memory from that statement as to the amount of money that went missing?
Yes.
Does that refresh your memory as to how much money you believed was missing from your account?
Yes. There were so many statements and papers, and I started to get a bit confused. but I'm sure $40,000 is the correct amount.
All right. Now, do you manage your own banking?
Oh, not really anymore. My son Gary does all my banking, and he works with Julia. I'm not as young as I used to be, you know.
Where do you keep your checkbook?
Oh, in my purse somewhere.
And do you write out your own checks?
Oh, yes.
I'm
I
going to
do.
be showing you some checks. And I'm going to ask you whether you recognize these checks. First of all, are these the type of checks that are part of your bank account?
Well, that's the number.
And do you recognize the name that those checks are made out to?
They're made out to Gary, my son.
Okay, and the amounts?
Well, one is 15,000, and one is 10, and one is 15,000.
Do you recall ever writing those amounts in terms of writing out checks to your son, Gary?
No, nothing that big.
All right. And if you look at the signature, do you recognize that signature?
Well, it looks something like mine, but I never made those amounts out to Gary. We didn't have bills that cost that much.
All right. Your Honor, I'd like to file these 3 checks as exhibits in this trial.
Thank you,
Checks
counsel.
dated April 15th, April 23rd, and May 1st.
We'll mark them as a composite exhibit, Exhibit 1.
Thank you. Now, Mrs. Smith, do you often have visitors in your home?
Not really. There's just my son and Jane, sometimes my grandson. And oh yes, the nurse comes in a couple times a week. So there's a few people.
Do the nurse or the grandson, do any of these people have any responsibility with your financial affairs?
No, excepting my son.
All right. Now, when did you first notice that the money was missing?
Well, I think it was June, but it could have been May because I got a bank statement that wasn't accurate, but I thought it was maybe an error by the bank, so I just let it go. But then it happened again in June, and so I became worried then. I sometimes have trouble making out all these statements.
Now, you mentioned someone by the name of Julia earlier. Who is Julia?
Julia Grayson. Julia's been helping me with when my husband was living, with our banking and financial matters for over 45 years. She's a teller with the Commonwealth Bank close to our neighborhood, and she's sitting in the courtroom somewhere right there.
Your Honor, I'm going to be seeking leave to call Ms. Greason, I believe you indicated her name was, as the next witness. Those are all the questions I have for now, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
I'm counsel for Mr. Smith, and if you don't understand my questions, please ask me to repeat myself, and I'll do so. I understand that you ordinarily keep your checkbook in your purse. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And you leave your purse somewhere in your home? Do you know where you typically leave your purse?
No particular place. Maybe on the kitchen table, I suppose.
Earlier, you mentioned to my friend that there were several people that visit you frequently, correct?
Yes.
Your son,
Yes.
your grandson.
Yes.
Your grandson's in his 20s, correct?
Yes.
Jane.
Yes.
Was there anybody else?
The nurse.
Okay. And they come into your home and greet you?
Yeah, the odd time, or 2 of them every day.
So it's possible that these individuals, all of them, would have access to your purse?
I suppose so, yes.
Okay. Now, is it fair to say that you wouldn't know which one of them had access to your purse at any given time?
Guess not.
So you can't be sure that Gary, for example, had access to your purse and used your checkbook?
Not really. Gary's such a good son, and I'm sure if he did this, he would do it with the idea that he'd pay me back. I don't want to see him charged with anything criminal over the result of all this.
Ma'am, you're 89 years old?
Yes, don't tell anybody.
And you mentioned that you're no longer, or I don't want to misstate your words, but you're not as good with numbers as you used to be, correct?
No,
Is-
that's correct. No, I'm not good with numbers anymore.
And sometimes when you look at bank statements or papers, you get confused.
Wouldn't you at my age?
Indeed, you mentioned to my friend that sometimes you have difficulty understanding such things.
Yes.
In aging, has your memory faded?
No, not that much. My legs hurt, and I have heart problems, but my memory's not too bad so far.
Okay, so difficulty comprehending bank statements, fair?
Well, I guess so. So much stuff is in there that they don't need to put in. If they just do something simple, why then wouldn't be any problem.
Confusion with numbers,
I'll bet.
but you say your memory's still intact.
As far as I know,
Okay. Is it not plausible that the checks that my friend presented to you that form part of Exhibit A were in fact written by you?
oh no, that's not so. I don't forget any checks that I write. On my bank book, I have everything written down. And these checks were missing. And the stubs where I usually write what the check is for, the stubs were just there vacant. Oh no, I don't forget writing checks. I know what checks I've written. But if Gary'd asked me, I'd have given it to him.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Any re-examination?
No, nothing further. Thank you very
All
much
right.
for coming.
Thanks, Mrs. Smith. You can step down now. Thank you very much.
Next witness I'd like to call then is Constable Martin.
Please place your hand on the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So
I do.
help you God.
Constable Martin, you're a member of the Waterloo Regional Police Service, are you?
Yes, I am.
How long have you been a police officer?
20 years.
I understand you became aware of these checks that have been filed as an exhibit?
Yes, I did.
What do you know about them?
On July 1st, I received a call from Mrs. Jane Scott. She was calling on behalf of Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith had noticed that there was some money missing from her bank account, and she had some concerns that her son might have been stealing it. So on July 3rd, I had the occasion to attend her residence and take a statement from her with regards to the missing checks. She was quite adamant that she was very aware of which checks she had written and which ones were missing. She told me also that she didn't believe her son was actually stealing from her, but that he was just taking the money from the account. And she really wanted him to stop because she was very worried that she was going to run out of money. She didn't want him to get into any trouble, but she did agree to a police investigation, and if charges were warranted, she was in agreement with that.
All right. Is there any other information about Mr. Smith relevant to this case?
Mr. Smith had a police record as well. He was convicted of theft approximately 6 years ago. He had taken a piece of Mrs. Smith's art collection without her permission, sold it, and used the money for his business.
All right. Those are all the questions I have for you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any cross-examination, Mr. Conant?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Constable. You're excused.
Thank you. Next witness I'd like to call in is Julia Greason.
Jump forward, please, Ms. Reason.
Please place your right hand on the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Ms. Greason, I understand that you work for the bank.
Yes, I do.
Which bank is that?
The Bank of Montreal.
And how long have you worked there?
I've worked there for 45 years.
I kind of
Mrs.
doubt it.
Smith was one of my first clients. I'm 68. I use oil of Olay.
So you're familiar with both Mrs. Smith and with Gary Smith?
Yes, I've known them for quite some time. The whole time I've been working at the bank, I would consider them both friends.
Okay. Now, did you become aware of some problems with Mrs. Smith's banking account?
Well, no. I mean, I've known them for quite some time. I've done Mrs. Smith's personal accounts, and I've been dealing with Gary's business woes. And I know Mrs. Smith's contributions have been really helping Gary. He comes in from time to time, and he'll deposit the checks that have been given to him, and I know they're close, so.
All right. And the checks you're referring to are the checks that, excuse me, if I might have those over. Do you recognize those checks?
Yes, I do.
And these are the checks that you say Gary Smith has brought into your bank and deposited into his business account?
Yes, into the account for his business. These are the checks, yes.
Did you ever contact Mrs. Smith to determine whether she, in fact, had signed those particular checks?
No, because I know, Gary and her are quite close, and he's helping her out a lot, so it didn't seem out of the ordinary to me at all. And the signatures looked, I've been working with her for 45 years, and the signature looks exactly the same to me.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Any cross-examination?
Good morning. I understand that over the long period of time in which you've interacted with both Miss Smith and her son, that you've observed Miss Smith gifting amounts of money to Mr. Smith. Is that not so?
Well, Gary would come into the banks with the checks, and so I assumed that those were given to him or gifted to him, and so the signature was there, and I just deposited the checks.
That's a fair assumption that you've made because Miss Smith never said anything to you about it, correct?
Well, no. I mean, I know their relationship, and so and I recognize the signature, and I've been working with them for 45 years, and so the signature is the same.
Right. So it made sense that it could be a gift, for example.
It made sense to me that it could be a gift, yes.
Right. Now, I suppose then that you can't assist the court, the judge, in coming to any understanding about these checks other than to say, well, it's quite likely that it was a gift.
It's quite likely it was a gift, and from what I can tell in the signatures, then, yeah. I thought I was doing the right thing. Yeah.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
No re-examination?
No re-examination, and that's the case
Is
for the Crown.
that's the case for the Crown? Thank you, Ms. Jansen. Mr. Clement, are you calling any evidence on behalf of Mr. Smith?
No, the defense will not be calling any evidence.
All right. Well then, thank you for your submissions. Would you stand up, please, Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith, I have carefully considered all of the evidence that I've heard today, and I'm satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that on the evidence before me, and in particular Mrs. Smith's evidence regarding the 3 checks marked as Exhibit 1, that you forged those checks and used the funds for your own purposes without Mrs. Smith's consent or permission, and accordingly I find you guilty of the charge of theft and for $40,000. And having heard submissions from both counsel with respect to the appropriate penalty that I should impose, and in light of your previous conviction, which this is a very serious matter, I've got no alternative, Mr. Smith, than to sentence you to a period of incarceration of 1 year. I also want to ensure that there is no repetition of this conduct in relation to Mrs. Smith, and I am following your sentence of incarceration, or placing you on probation for a period of 1 year, on one of the terms of which will be that you're to have no contact whatsoever with Mrs. Smith.
Please rise. This court is now adjourned.
What does this mean? Who will look after me now? I can't afford to pay for all these going and things.
You didn't
I
wanted to see
don't
him?
want him to go to prison.
The judge was real, the Crown was real, the prosecutor was real, the police were real, and thank you all of them so much for agreeing to be actors. So extra applause for those folks.
Well, given the severity of this case, a sentence of imprisonment of 1 year, followed by a year of probation, constitutes, in my view, the likely outcome at trial. The son would also have been ordered to have no contact with his mother during the probationary period. At the end of the trial, the mother ended up confused, guilt-ridden, and traumatized. The son likely would not have received the addiction and mental health counseling he so badly needed while in custody.
Thank you for watching this video, and to all those who participated and supported it. In particular, I would like to thank Arlene Groh, who pioneered restorative approaches to elder abuse in the region of Waterloo. For over 2 decades, Arlene has spoken out about abuse of older adults, becoming a world-renowned expert on the topic. She has worked tirelessly to bring elder abuse to the attention of governments, corporations, healthcare professionals, and our society. Arlene has been instrumental in both raising awareness and looking for solutions to this previously invisible crisis. Thank you, Arlene. Finally, I would also like to thank Justices Glenn Haney and Frank Newbold for their support of this important cause and the need to have restorative remedies incorporated in our justice system.